alaikum everyone, welcome to yet another fruitful and entertaining episode of Soul Sisters. This is Mayya Al Saeed. Along with me is my amazing host,
Vanessa Mehri.
And with us in the studio today we have Fatma Makki. Thank you so much for joining us, Fatma.
Thank you, ladies.
Of course, if you know Fatma and you know what Fatma is all about, you will know our topic for today is books. And this is a topic that I pushed forward because books has always been a part of my childhood. And growing up, books were just part of my life. And sadly, I don't think it's the case now with our children. So we have Fatma here to help us understand and just have a general talk, because the three of us in the studio today are all bookworms. So it's going to be very fun and entertaining, inshallah. Fatma also hosts in the radio station the Papercut, which is all about books
and reading. And the tagline that I use for that is discovering ourselves and the world through the written word.
It's so beautiful.
It is beautiful.
If only people understood that there is a whole nother world in books. But it all goes down to people reading to begin with before they even understand why they're reading. So yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are, Vanessa, on this.
Well, I for one I view reading like a magic portal that can.
That's deep.
I really look at it. I view it that way. First of all, it connects you to voices of those who are no longer with us. You know, you can you're whisked instantly into someone's mind in the past, but as well as the present. And I find that so powerful. That's why I call it a magic portal. That's just my view on it.
And you're not totally wrong in that thinking. You know, there's actually been studies to show that when you read literature, specifically literature, the parts of your brains that get activated are the same parts of the brains that would get activated if you were actually experiencing what was happening in what you were reading. So it really is as though you're going into another world. Your brain doesn't distinguish between that.
It's so true because, for example, many times when I read a book, I create images in my mind to the point I feel I'm watching a movie. So,
Exactly.
And now because I'm watching a series and I'm reading a book, I'm thinking, so is this the book? Or is this the series? It's that vivid in my mind. So it's so true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. No, I know. I did read something about a study that was conducted by neurologists. You know, I like neuroscience. That's my geek side. And they actually checked and saw that a person who reads about 30 pages prior to sleeping, when they checked their brain activity the next day, the left side was super active.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it really affects you on a cellular level.
Your brain chemistry.
Yeah, your brain chemistry. It's fascinating.
It's funny because I used to read to put myself to sleep. That was my reading time. But now I've changed it because it's the type of book I'm reading that I need to be more focused and I need to grasp the knowledge. So I need to be awake, not putting myself to sleep. But as I said, it was part of my childhood routine. And it's, I think, what is lacking these days in children's lives. I think they're so busy with the electronic world and all the games and whatever. They're really missing out. And I think partly here, we can't really blame the kids, can we?
Honestly, no. It would be so unfair to the challenges that they have and the obstacles that they have to get themselves in front of a book are so much greater than what I experienced, for example, as a child. I didn't have the internet and all the unlimited, infinite world of media that, you can consume nowadays. So books are just one type of media that competes with all those other types of infinite media for our attention, which is the most valuable currency these days.
And I feel one of the reasons why I was really, I had a really strong, force to do this is because I feel it's declining. I don't know, at one point, I don't know if it was something was published officially or stuff, but I heard they're no longer going to publish books. And maybe it was just one of these things on the internet that you read that has no truth, but that scared me. How can we live in a world that has no books?
I don't know. I'm a bit biased, but I don't think that world is ever going to come.
I hope not.
There have been reports predicting the end of publishing and the end of print since the ebook first came out, which is early 2000s. And the imminent demise of the book publishing industry was always being forecast, and it just never came. People found that it's really hard to get people to do away with physical copies. And that doesn't change the fact that even if physical copies, let's just say, God forbid, in a world in the future that print copies don't exist, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because books would still exist in some form. Reading would still exist. It would be maybe ebooks and audiobooks. But I think that's still a valid form of literature nonetheless, for sure. It's just a different form.
It's scary. As somebody who's written 2 books, I can say I had a really tough time personally with that because of those stats. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to pour my heart and soul into something and then nobody's going to pick it up, it's going to die on the shelves. You know, do I really want to do this? I still went ahead and did it, and the book sold. Yeah. And people love it because there are people who love to touch books and smell books, you know.
I'm definitely one of those.
It just gives you a sense of comfort, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I love with books, like you can't how do I put this? You can't hear the annotation, the author's annotation, and the fact that authors have to be so clever with hyperbole and metaphors to try and really bring you into. I love that. I love the ability of being able to do that through words.
Yeah.
To grasp the reader.
Through words.
So
Okay, so just going back to the topic of children, like we touched upon the fact that it's partly our fault. So just out of curiosity, did you grow up, like I mentioned, books were part of my childhood, mainly because my mom at that point always made it part of my bedtime routine. So it'll be, we'd always have something to read, books. She'd buy me books and then she would read them to me. And that's what I did with my children. So that's why they as well love books. And I think partly it's because of that, inheritance that they got from me, inshallah. And the fact that I made it part of their bedtime routine. I don't know, Fatma, if you share the same.
I had a different but similar kind of experience where definitely reading and books was a huge part of growing up for me. My parents are both big bookworms, and their own fields that they, their own topics that they like to read. But I always grew up watching them reading. We had huge collections at home. And one very important thing, although I don't seem to recall much bedtime reading happening, but definitely reading was so encouraged. So one message that my dad always used to convey to us as kids was, if we wanted to buy toys, we were very limited when it came to how many toys we were allowed to have, or anything else, anything that we, that was enjoyable basically, or distracting, let's say. He would say, you can have toys up to a certain limit, but when it comes to books, you can have as much as you want. So when the school book fair came along, I would tell him, I would test, that promise of his and be like, I want this. And he would never say no matter what. It was like, there's no limit. So it gave me this feeling that it was kind of like brainwashing, but in a really good way. I was conditioned to love it. And also another thing to mention is that I grew up in, my childhood was in Paris. So my parents, my mom, I remember when she used to go do errands and things, she would leave me at W.H. Smith, in the town center. But W.H. Smith back in those days was a totally different environment from what it is now. Now it's it's a different thing, but it was a really huge bookstore with it was just endless. The one in Paris was huge. And there was a massive kids section, and she used to leave me there, obviously with a nanny. And I would stay there for hours while she went and did her errands. So this became a routine part of my childhood. So in those ways, just the exposure to book, even though they didn't actually sit with me and read books with me, they just left me to my own devices and strongly encouraged me towards that direction. But they kind of just let me sort of discover for myself, which I think looking back is a really good way to do it, because it just fostered this feeling of, this is a good thing and you want this in your life. And it was. I enjoyed it. So I just kept on going on with it.
That's amazing.
That's such a beautiful story.
That is beautiful. Actually, now that you mention it, a lot of parents, if they want to have me time, they drop their kids with the nanny or without to a play place, right?
Exactly.
How cool would it be if parents changed that and dropped them to a library?
I mean, it would be amazing. It gives this message in their mind that here you can play here. You can play here just as much as you could play in a playpen. Not that there's anything wrong with that. They're both their own kind of, they've got their own benefits for kids. But I do see here that, and again, we can't beat ourselves too much about it as well as parents or as adults. Another major thing for building up the habit of reading is access.
Yeah.
I was about to ask, which brings us to access.
Which brings us to a short break, and we'll talk about access right after this break. This is Mayya Al Saeed. In the studio with me is my co-host Vanessa Mehri and the lovely Fatma Makki, and today we're talking about books. If you have just joined us, we are now leading into the way of books and where we can get them. Are they accessible to us, and where can we find them?
So this is actually a topic that comes up a lot with me. I get it maybe once or twice a week, and which is, where do you get books in Oman or in Muscat? We do have a little bit of a scarcity of at least English language bookstores to access in libraries. For that reason, I actually created a whole episode on my podcast about where to get English language books in Oman, and not just where to buy, because you have to remember, when it comes to accessibility, people can't always afford to go and buy books at the rate that I, for example, buy. Alhamdulillah, I'm in a position where I'm privileged enough that I can indulge this habit more, but when it comes to reading for the masses, you have to make sure that it's accessible to the masses. And different people have different capabilities, and as a result, the existence of public libraries or libraries in general is crucial to building that habit, especially for kids, because kids' books are also one of the more expensive types of books that are out there. And so, where do we get books? There's the Children's Public Library. From what I've heard, I haven't actually fact-checked this myself. It's not possible to actually check books out.
No, it's not.
Oh.
I've been, and the only reason I've been there is because, as you know, I homeschooled my kids for 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't do that anymore. They've recently gone back to traditional school, but that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, so I have gone 3 times. And yes, you cannot check books out.
Okay.
So,
and
can I ask, what do you do there? So the children can just have, pick a book, sit and read it
quietly and read there and hope they've finished the book or remember the book and come back and finish it off.
So
anyway,
it addresses a very limited need, but I hope that there's the potential there for this to be a really amazing public service, especially if they start allowing kids that are under the age of 3 in, because it's a children's library.
Yes.
And I believe that having kids exposed to literature and books and reading from even below age 2 will definitely have an impact later in life. Anyways, so there's that library. There are a number of really amazing initiatives by individuals who have taken it upon themselves to create this access that we lack. So there are 3 that I highlighted in my episode. One is the CareShare Free Book Library, and this is by this amazing woman, Jaiza, who set up this initiative. She actually learned about this through a friend of hers in Sri Lanka or in the Maldives. I'm sorry, I'm not remembering the facts exactly right, but the point is they collaborated, and she learned this of this initiative that was taking place in the Maldives, and she applied it here, and it's working amazing. And there's also people like Rebecca Olson, who has the Olson Family Library in Al Ghubra, and they have this fantastic, huge collection of books that people just donate, and they have this really well-documented system. I mean, you borrow from them, so you know.
I have 2 current reads that are from them.
Talk about
we'll
later.
Yeah.
Vanessa, wait.
We'll get there.
So we have these amazing initiatives. There are a few more as well. And in addition to that, we have, for example, Let's Read by Dar al-Ata, which is honestly a lifesaver, because it's something in between borrowing books and buying books from firsthand from a retail store. This is a cause that's very close to my heart, because it's one of those amazing win-win-win situations. First of all the money goes to charity, so you can't go wrong. It goes to Dar al-Ata. Second of all, the books are 1 to 2 riyals, so highly accessible. And on Sundays, they're 50% off. Just quick plug.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And they also got a card machine. I should just work for them by this point.
Yes, I noticed they did get that. And the books, and the books have that nice.
And the selection of books are really, really good because most of the people are bringing them from all over the place.
Yeah.
You know, so the selection is actually much broader than what you would normally get in a normal bookstore here. So it really is and obviously people get to offload their books. So I love it because everybody wins in this situation.
And just to add to that, I love the initiatives that they do. They partner up or collaborate with schools.
Yes.
And
yes.
how do I know this? Because my daughters, one of them, I think, won one of the competitions there. And that happened through the school. So I thought this is excellent.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great way to encourage children to
Yeah.
read.
I love the variety. And my favorite part of going there for books is just they have that nice old book smell, some of them. And then the finding little treasures sometimes in the books.
I found so many
postcards,
amazing things.
notes, love notes. And you're like, so again, you're connected to people through it's
My favorite thing is once I found a postcard from like 1970 something to someone in Switzerland.
Oh.
And it had like, so I forgot you're Swiss. And it wasn't even from Oman to Switzerland. It was like somewhere else in the world. So I love that. Like, and you get that in bookstores, secondhand bookstores all the time.
Yeah, you do.
It's awesome.
little treasures.
And what's really great about that one is they're actually in Avenues Mall. So they could easily fulfill that same function that W.H. Smith did for me when I was a kid. Because they have like these amazing like lounging areas and a huge kids section. So people who want to go do their shopping or whatever can, making sure that their kids are, being supervised by someone, but leave them there and just let them explore.
I wish it was more, sorry to cut, I wish it was more kind of enclosed to the point, you know how you have, like, again, back to the subject of kids going to places there to play, right? A place where they're secure in there, but they're reading.
Yes, exactly.
And and if they're tired of reading, there's maybe some coloring they could do. Like little stations. That would be really cool. And even for teens, because we don't have community centers in Oman. At least I don't know about it. So that would be really cool if that existed.
It would be my dream to see something like that in Oman, a community center where families could come, and kids could go and do homework, read. And then there's also like I heard my colleague, a friend of mine from work was telling me, she's Egyptian, and she was telling me in Egypt they have this big culture there of having these nawadi and like clubs, which is like sort of I want to say like social clubs almost, but it's more like I'm not sure if I'm explaining it correctly, but from what I understood from her, kids just go there after school and they have sports and they do their homework and they do reading and everything like that, and it's just like a place for them to be busy. And I really think that's
very much needed.
Very needed here.
So be busy without being in front of a screen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, parents, are you listening? Let's see, until that happens, we can create that sort of environment at home. There's, nothing stops us except time and the willingness to do it. Because we can easily be busy or make our children, how can I say this, get involved in other things like extra activities, like they can go out, but then that means taking, how many children do you have, the thing of taking this one, then that one, dropping off, picking up. It's hectic. So one can easily give up. So reading is really easy.
Yes, actually.
You have 2 examples of how it can be done. Use, through parents.
Yeah, no, I've personally, I've seen the difference. I have 3 kids, but I've obviously read to only 2 for now, because I started with the 3rd one, and she loves flipping through and smacking the books right now. But with my firstborn, I didn't read as often as I should have. So she only developed a love for books later on when she studied literature for her school. My son, on the other hand, I read to every single night. We've read over 500. I don't usually count, but there's an app. We use the Epic app for kids, which is amazing. The Epic app opens up, again, now accessibility, isn't it? So he's been able to read so many different kind of books through that.
So sorry to interrupt. You're reading books on an iPad, or are they physical books?
It's on an iPad, but we've actually mixed the 2. So from the Olsen Library, which I also like going to, we got some books there that he is obsessed with, and then we coupled that with the iPad. But the point is, I put my time into reading with him every night, and he loves reading, and he's a really strong reader at 7 years old now.
Amazing.
So it definitely makes, I've seen it makes a difference. I kick myself for not doing the same with my firstborn, but again, I was learning.
You learn.
Yeah, you learn.
The firstborn is a trial and error.
I swear, I'm so sorry.
And I think you never realize how long it takes for things to take effect with kids. I mean, it really takes years before you start seeing that happen.
It's like a seed that you plant, and then you just have to, with time, watch it bloom.
Yeah, you just have to have faith that it's gonna work out.
Cross your fingers.
Yeah. I mean, creating a pleasant environment at home for reading is 100% like one of the most, I think, important, crucial things, regardless of accessibility, which definitely is a big factor. But if you create that environment at home where, if it's important to you, you can convey that to children by, having your own reading time but I wouldn't force it on kids. So I made the big mistake when I was younger. I was around 16 or 17, and I don't know why I decided that I was gonna instill the love of reading into my younger brothers, because I felt like they didn't like to read as much as they should.
Yeah.
So I tried to force them. I think I was younger. I must have been 15, because I feel like 16-year-old me at least would have known better. But anyways, 15, 14, I went and I gave them, I remember it was Harry Potter, and I was like, listen, I need you guys to get serious about reading, okay? So every day I want you to read one chapter, and then we're going to talk about it, okay? And that just
So
out of
sweet.
nowhere. Okay.
So cute, yeah.
And then I used to hound them about this, and it became an issue. Like,
So
it
you
was never
nagged.
very prolonged. Like, they just flat out refused. I mean, for many, and I don't blame them. Like, this is what's going to happen if you try and force kids
force
to do
things.
something. First, they're going to rebel 100%. And second of all, it came out of nowhere. There was no rationale for it. It was obviously very, like, ill thought out. Now, looking back, I would not do something like that, and I would never encourage parents to like try and force their kids to read, because it would definitely it could have the opposite effect and make them really averse to it.
So I think one of the ways parents can introduce reading is like if they're reading a book, like over dinner, it's like, you know what I read recently? Blah, 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 blah. So they share their love for reading in that way to encourage. It's like, oh, that's interesting. And then I think another thing is how you can get a child to read. It's different for everybody. It's what the topic is. What are you reading?
Yes.
Like if it's something, or what is cool at the moment, like the Harry Potter series was a whole thing. So everyone was interested to read Harry Potter, even kids that weren't into reading, because all the children talked about it. So it depends on what is the first book. So, and they have to keep on trying to find the right book. So I totally agree with Fatma, no forcing involved, because this is something that I want to talk about as well, is why you end up why do we love reading?
Exactly. Well, and that's actually a mix of so that there's an overlap here, because one of the things that I often, even when adults come and tell me, I want to read more, but I don't have the habit, the first thing I ask them is, what do you normally like? What's your interest? Do you like true crime, for example? We'll talk about this in a sec. So if you like true crime, why don't you read books about true crime? There's no one standing over you who's going to examine you. Not like me when I was younger, trying to examine my my younger siblings. No one's going to test you. No one's going to judge you. This is only for your own either personal education, entertainment, solace, spiritual guidance, whatever, You have to know what it is that you want and what it is that you like, and try and get that out of a book. So I'm not going to try and prescribe the same books to people and say, everybody should be reading Dostoevsky at this age, or whatever, or everyone should be reading economics books or things like that. Everyone should read what they like to read. Abdullah always tells me he struggles with certain book topics.
Abdullah's waving his hand right now.
I'm like, you should read books about film, for example, or filmmakers or whatever, people he admires,
I mean, it's not, look, just like your social media feed will be different from my social media feed. I usually say, like, when people tell me I don't know what books I'm interested in, I'm like, just look at your search history and look at your social media feed.
Exactly.
What pops up the most? Is it food? If it's food, then grab a story on food. If it's architecture or house design, pick up a book on that. If you're into crime, You know, just your search history will reveal, or your Pinterest board will reveal your interests very fast.
It's true. And also people need to, there's a little bit of, I want to say moral issue or a personal judgment issue. People sometimes feel like they should be reading certain things over others, you know? And definitely there are books that can educate you more above others. They have more just factual information. But that doesn't mean that you don't learn and you don't benefit. Just like I explained how there are these studies that show that when you read fiction literature, your brain behaves as though you're experiencing it directly. That's undoubtedly got to have a benefit. It builds empathy, it builds perspective, you know, you get the wisdom of all of these different voices for yourself. Just because it's fiction doesn't mean you don't learn something. You're always learning something.
And it always comes back. And now, I mean, when you even look at the series that are coming out, there's a lot. I mean, most of it's fictional, dystopian. There's a lot of, and I was telling my daughter, there's so many books on dystopia that become series.
True.
You know? So I told her, why don't you get ahead of the game and read the books when the series is out?
This is turning into a series. It's a topic we talk about often lately. Like we and the book club have this theory that people are now starting to write books in the hopes that they're going to become series. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Books are generally changed form to suit the commercial needs of their time. Like another tidbit, Charles Dickens, you know, he wrote for a periodical. So he wrote for a newspaper and he would upload.
Did he? Was he a time traveler that I didn't know?
He would send his chapters in, little chapters into this newspaper, and they would publish it. And he would get paid for every chapter that he printed. So it was incentive for him to make very long books as a result. His books are very long, very elaborate, very descriptive, but they're amazing. Like they're so amazing now that people still, people refer to very elaborate things as Dickensian now as a result of that. You know,
interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't want to cut you off when you were talking about your book club, but I'm sure people who are listening and who have yet to listen to the Papercut, how does one join your book club?
So if you want to join my book club, it's you just need to join the mailing list where I send out monthly invites to join the session, because we have almost all of our sessions, well, all of them up until now have been on Zoom, and it's just easier. Everyone can access it easily. Again, accessibility, very important. And we might have some physical gatherings soon, but actually we have members in different countries, so I like to keep it online.
And is there a fee to join, or just
no, of course
just
not. No. There's just join the mailing list, and obviously people need to get the books by themselves. Although I really hope that I can partner with a bookstore here locally to try and get them to supply the books, because most of them are not available in Oman. We have to order them off the internet.
What's a session like for those who've never been in a book club and don't, have no clue as to what happens in one of these?
I'm not sure about other book clubs, but so I've only actually been in a few others myself, but the way that they typically run is we honestly just do a little bit of a roll call and just in the beginning and see, like, did you guys like the book? Didn't like the book? What did you like about it? What didn't you like? We'll go into the topic, but more often than not, the topic, it can just go anywhere. And that's what I love about the discussion. It can just really go anywhere. And I think that it's a testament to how fun those sessions are that half of the people who attend most of the time haven't even read the book. They just want to show up for the discussion. So, and you know what? They still benefit. Like they still can somehow manage to talk about the book without actually having read the book. I don't know how that happens, but it happens every single time.
Interesting.
Okay, we'll go on a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're listening to Oman FM 90.4. Soul Sisters. This is Mayya here. Got Vanessa in the studio along with Fatma, and we're talking about books. So if you've just joined us, we're now going to be talking about our favorite books, because we can't make an episode and not discuss our favorite books. So what's your favorite book?
So my current reads, it's hard to say favorite books.
I'll
say my current read is called The Explosive Child.
That's
by Ross Greene.
Okay. It's a parenting book, obviously.
You know what? It was made as a parenting book. However, you can apply this to your everyday interaction sessions with any human being out there. That's how strong it is. It really, even in the workforce, it teaches you, it gives you important tools to be able to communicate better with people around you. Let's put it that way. Because let's face it, not everybody is all flowers, roses and daisies out there, right? We come across so many different kinds of people. You do the school run at 7 a.m. Some people are not always very chirpy and happy. So this will help you deal with that. And then this one is really funny.
Sorry, Vanessa. Oh, you said Vanessa.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
This one, why men don't have a clue and women always need more shoes.
By
This
Adam.
one, it's a husband-wife team. And they've written a couple of books. So this is a continuation of that. And even if you haven't read their previous books, you can still pick this one up and just get started with it. And it just highlights the issues between men and women, married couples specifically. But again, you can apply this to your everyday issues with people around you. It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to be married to just read this. So I like it because it makes me laugh. And it's so funny to see how alike people really are, men and women. You think like your spouse is unique until you read this and you're like, wait, there's other people like that out there? So that's what I love about it. Over to you.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, talking about my favorite book is actually impossible. I don't think I have one. It changes.
I feel it's a question that you'd ask a child. What's your favorite book? So yeah, what's a book that you're currently reading or you've enjoyed recently?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm enjoying our latest book club pick. For October, I obviously tried to choose something spooky, and we already decided it was going to be a nonfiction. So I'm currently reading with my book club The Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. This is based on a true story. It's a true crime event set in the 19th century, where in the US, in Chicago, they had this really big exposition called the World's Fair. And it was a massive global event, but there was a serial killer there who took advantage of the crowds and the masses and everything. And there was a lot of, and he did really take advantage of it, found women who were on their own and killed them, basically. He murdered them at the fair. So this is all true story. It
More than one?
Yeah, he was a serial killer. So he killed many. And he didn't get discovered until much later, but I'm still very early on in the book. So right now it talks a lot about just the city of Chicago at the time, and it's really interesting. Crazy. And I'm listening to it on audiobook as well. So I alternate between the audiobook, because I have a membership with Audible, and when I'm on the car, and then it just feels like a really nice podcast, And then when I get home, I read the book.
Interesting.
It feels nice to read like that.
Do you feel like there's differences when you have the audio version and the book? Do you feel like they leave out some parts of it sometimes, or?
Luckily, with this type of book, it lends itself really well to audio. The narrator is quite good, and the style of the writing, when it's read out, it really does feel like a really well-written podcast. So I guess we've just gotten used to that format. But I don't think that audiobook is always suitable for a lot of other things.
Yeah, it
like
depends,
cookbooks, for example.
Yeah.
Like cookbooks.
But other than that, for my own separate, not part of the book club, I'm reading this fiction book called The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. Yeah. Ruth Ozeki is a Japanese-American. She's actually a Buddhist Zen nun. And so a lot of her books are based on Zen philosophy, I suppose. And in this book, there's a young boy who's actually, his parents are Japanese and American, so similar to her. And then the father dies. And then after the father dies, the boy starts experiencing this weird phenomenon where objects start talking to him. This book is actually a character in the book, which is narrating the book. It's so trippy, but I really, really love it. And I've read everything she's written. She's amazing, and she really gets you thinking. And so, yeah, I love it.
That's
and I think there are also different genres that people read. So maybe now, because, with the whole parenting and kids, so that's what you're into at the moment.
Yes, yeah.
I think it changes and it varies.
No, it definitely does. I mean, I like crime, crime books. Agatha Christie is one of my favorite. Ever since when I was a teenager, that's what I was reading.
I loved it. I loved it so much. I actually visited her hometown.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
It's in the UK. Like
Yeah.
I was close to where I went to university, so I went to visit it. But it so suits
yeah.
Agatha Christie living there.
So I'm the one that asked you both to bring books, and I'm the one that forgot to bring mine. But my ultimate favorite book, maybe this is very cheesy, but it's the Quran. Just because, first of all, it's the word of God, and I feel that every time I read it, there's always something different I get out of it. And there's so many things. It's a book, it's a spiritual thing, and since I'm on this beautiful spiritual journey, this is one of my favorite books. And the one that I just finished reading, which is Where the Crawdads Sing by have you read it? By
No, I heard so much about it.
Delia
Owens. I think.
Delia Owens, yes.
Yeah.
So this is a book I picked up. I wanted to ask you this question, like, how do you pick books? But this is a book I picked up because of Reese Witherspoon, the actress who has her book club. So she raved about this book, and now it's becoming a movie. And I'm the type that needs to read the book before watching the movie. So I decided to read it, and it's kind of a crime story, so you'll enjoy it. It's all about this girl that is abandoned, and then there's a murder that happens, and she is known as the suspect. So it's a beautiful story. It's not all about who did it, but it goes to her childhood, then how she becomes like a woman, and then how this happens, and then the end and how she dies. So it was beautifully narrated. So I think you would enjoy it.
I think so too. No, I heard a lot about it. I usually, when books like that, because that came out a year ago roughly, or that was when the hype was at the highest, and I was like, let me wait until it dies down. And I always do that because I don't want to be influenced by the hype.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Reese Witherspoon's book club picks. I often read from them, and I always find them she chooses really well.
I used to love hers. I mean, I love hers and Oprah. When she does.
Oprah's a
book club.
classic. Yeah.
And then now I'll be following Fatma's books.
Yes. Well, I can't wait to get my hands on that one right there.
I can loan you this copy. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good.
I don't like lending my books out. Do you guys have that?
You give them to me though.
I know, but I'm very picky.
Yeah, I know.
So
I feel privileged because Mayya's always handing me the books.
Once I've read the book, I'm happy to
I actually have one of yours.
Oh, do you? Oh, yes, I remember. Yeah, that's a good one. You should read it.
No, I have. I'm halfway through.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
nice.
then I stopped briefly because again, having a baby.
Valid.
Yeah, it's been rough.
Yes, I can imagine. But no, I don't have it. I do now have a new policy that I will never give a book that's been signed by the author, because I did that recently. I had a signed copy of, I'm sorry, I'm just not over this. I had a signed copy of Fatma Bhutto's book, which is New Kings of the World. She wrote this book about the culture shift of global culture away from Western ideals towards different, cultures from different parts of the world. So she looks at Bollywood, she looks at K-pop, she looks at a lot Turkish soap operas. Anyways, I met her at the literature festival in Dubai, and she signed my book. We had a great talk, and then I gave it to somebody, and I can't remember who, and now I can't find it.
Can you please take the book back to Fatma? You know yourself.
PSA. I tried. Honestly, I tried. But anyways, now I have a new policy. No more books that are signed, and no more books that I haven't read yet are going out of my bookshelf.
Also keep a list.
Add it to your notes, yes, as Mayya was going to say. Add it to even your phone. Just add that. And even when you give, anything you give out, even dishes, like when you take food to people's houses, write
Food
that
has
down.
to come in there somewhere.
Sorry. Okay.
We could do it like my mom, like she writes her name underneath all of her dishes. I don't know if your parents do this.
What is she using?
Like permanent marker.
Oh, nail polish.
Yeah, some kind of mark that's just yours. So, because, our family, we share a lot of dishes amongst us, and there's this constant shuffling of dishes. So that's how we sort it out.
One of my mom's friends, I mean, I know it's slightly off topic, but this is just something that you can apply to books. When you give somebody something, in French, they used to say, ça s'appelle revient. So it's called...
That's so passive aggressive.
It's called Bring Me Back.
And put the name. Oh, I like that. I am going to put that on my dishes as well as books.
So there
Oh
you
my
see.
God.
See how fun and entertaining? I told you this was going to be a great episode.
Now you've got some. That is huge. Now you've learned how
How to
get
tell
into
people
reading and how to get your books back and your
crucial.
stuff.
Now, really, this episode, talking about books is, I mean, it's such a general topic, but we can go really deep into it. And I hope, our listeners gain something from it today. And it was so fun doing this. We should have Fatma over sometime again, talk about books.
And check out her show. It is so insightful.
Thank you.
Especially the podcast on places that you can go and
Which we will
borrow
link.
books. Yeah, we will link it
To the show.
with this. To the show. It's awesome, and there's some great places to borrow books out there.
Yeah, definitely.
So thank you so much, Fatma.
Thank you, ladies.
for joining us
this
today.
was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
Anyway, guys, see you next week, inshallah. Till next time. Ma salama.
Ma salama.